Hi everybody, my name is Katie and welcome to my channel. So this video, I am going to be sort of explaining how I got into UAL. I think that a lot of this advice can be applicable to art schools, and I go to the University of the Arts London for my postgraduate degree, and I go to specifically the London College of Communication. This is like the branch that does like sort of like film, advertising, media, TV, which is what I do. I come from a background of like, I didn't go to art school for my undergraduate degree. Also, if you are applying for undergraduate right now, I will say a lot of these tips will be applicable. If you're thinking like, oh, this maybe won't apply to me because it's for postgraduate, I would still stick around because I think that there are some things that I have learned in my journey that I think could be helpful to you, so stick around. A little bit about my background. So I'm from DC. I did like a lot of musical theater and like plays and choir when I was in high school. Like I just always really loved the arts. I was really passionate about it. I took one film class and like I sort of had an interest in doing YouTube for a while, but I never really fully committed to it until I was like sort of halfway through college when the pandemic hit. And then I studied abroad and I just sort of knew that I wanted to come back to the UK to do my master's and like try and live here for a little bit. I did my undergraduate degree in something called arts management or cultural management, which is really like a business degree. It sounds like it's very artsy, but it's really not. Like I took a lot of accounting classes, I took a lot of finance, strategic planning, management, like all of those types of things, which are not very artsy. I'd say the artsiest part of my degree was like my creative writing concentration. And that was just something that I really had a passion for that I wanted to include in my degree. So I sort of applied to this program quite randomly, I would say. I always sort of knew that I maybe wanted to work in like the film and TV industry. It was just something that always sort of interested me. And I sort of went into arts management thinking like maybe I could parlay that into something in my future. I just didn't really know what, but again, it like didn't really have a direct crossover. Like I didn't go to school for film. I didn't really know much about film or, you know, film history or references or things like that. Like that was just not really something that I had focused on. Just talk about like the application process of applying for UAL. So first have to apply online. It's like a normal application process where you want to have your resume up and ready. You want to have like, you list out your work experiences and then you have to write a personal essay. For my program, and I think that this is across most art programs, and I know at UAL it's pretty standard, is that you have to submit some sort of like portfolio or some sort of example of your work. While I had been doing YouTube for about like 2-3-ish years, by then I was very stumped by this part of the proposal, and this was the only arts program that I applied for. So I knew I wanted to come back to the UK, and so I applied for a bunch of like cultural management master's programs over here so that I could like kind of get my foot in the door. This was actually the only TV course arts thing that I actually submitted anything for, and I submitted this so randomly. I had a professor kind of send me this link, and like I had seen it before. I was just like, there's just like really no way I'm gonna get into this. So I was just kind of like having that imposter syndrome. Like, oh, like I kind of really want this, but like it just feels like something that is so unattainable. So like I'm not even maybe gonna try. And I eventually got over that, and I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna just submit an application and see what happens. And I'm so happy I did that. When I was writing my personal statement, I literally submitted, I think like the day before it was due, or like the day, like this whole thing I just completely kind of like wrote off. I was just like, I worked really hard on my other applications, and then this one, like I didn't even show this essay to anybody before I submitted it, which is kind of a crazy thing to do, but it actually ended up working out for me. So I don't know what that says about application processes. And then for the portfolio, basically they give you like a very vague prompt. So like for TV, you had to submit a video, of course. The prompt that they gave us, and this was due like a month after the actual like initial application, but the prompt that they gave you was like so vague. There were no instructions. You had to submit it on this website like I had never actually seen before. And my best advice for this is just like, and I'm gonna get more into like grittier details of like sort of like crafting your voice and like trying to like submit something that represents you as a person and like your skills and what you would bring to the table on a team. And yeah, I think that very much like this whole process, I was just sort of like on a whim, just like following my heart. I was just like, and I think that is, I don't know if other people did that, but that was just like what worked for me, is like, that's how I operate as a person. I'm just like, oh, like I want to do this, so I'm just gonna do it, and I'm just gonna just follow this instinct and just like submit it and just like put all of me into this and see what happens. And if you are an international student and you are going to apply abroad, I would look up sort of like the application norms of that country that you're going to. So when I was Googling sort of like how to write a personal essay for, you know, application boards that are going to be English, and that is going to be something very different than something in the US. And so like here you can like do more research into this more concretely, but the two things that I found that they didn't want was the use of like Americanisms if you are an American applicant. So it's sort of like, oh, like I have a great passion for this, like, or like my dream. You can look it up. There's like very, very specific examples that like sort of irk people here. So I would just say like try to avoid those, even though I use a lot of those, and I've already used a lot of them in this video. So cool. And then the other thing that they really don't like is putting a picture on your resume. I don't know why they don't like that, but they just don't want a picture of you, which there was a picture of me on my resume. So I took that off and I just followed just Google guidelines of whatever country if you're going abroad. Just a thought. Also, if you're watching this video and you have been rejected from an art school, or you've been waitlisted or something like that because you feel like you don't have enough experience, or you don't have the things that I'm like later gonna say in this video, I recommend seriously checking out my other content, which is mostly about like taking a gap year and studying abroad, because that is really the time where I sort of took to ready myself for this experience. I think in a lot of ways it took like years for me to like get to this point in my life, but like I think that that's a good place to start. It's like definitely consider a gap year if like you think that this is absolutely something that's meant for you. You can do a lot of this work that I'm going to explain on a gap year. So in terms of submitting a portfolio, so for my video, I think it was something like, look out your window and describe the view and how it like changes over time. And that was it. That was like the whole entire prompt. And we had a very specific time limit. There was no instructions of like, you have to edit this, you have to be in the video, you have to, like, there was nothing. Like that was, you get one sentence and then you have to bring yourself to it. So I think that is probably the most challenging part, is when you're coming to that portfolio, is like, I think that you have to be very honest about like where you are and make something that really speaks to you and feels like you and gives them a taste of like your creative flair. And I would say like a good majority of the people that are in my program did not go to like film or television as their undergrad. Like most of us come from completely different backgrounds. Like we even have people, like one of my good friends on the course, like he went to school for history, and like another guy, I think he went to school for like computer science. So there's like a really wide variety of people on the course. So I wouldn't say like your background should necessarily stop you from applying to something that's completely new. I think that especially being a woman in like this day and age, I have had to overcome imposter syndrome like pretty much at every curve in the road. And the way that I did this was I feel like honestly I do owe a lot of this to my parents, like the way that I was brought up, because like, and especially my dad, because my dad is just like a little bit like like growing up, he would just be like, oh, you're gonna go have lunch with this like lady in my company and like talk to her about like sales. And I'd be like, what? Like me as like a 16-year-old just like going and having lunch with like a 40-year-old like professional lady. Like that is something that I actually did. And God bless you, Chris. But like that is, I tell people that now, and like, oh, also when I was like 10 years old, I had like business cards and I had to go around to the neighbors and advertise my business as like being like a dog sitter, like a pet sitter and babysitter. I think I started babysitting when I was like 11 or 12. Anyway, so it's just like the amount of like push that I have had from him, or especially like just applying to things, like if I like ever started to overthink it, he would just be like, just apply. And like that is absolutely the best advice, is like stop overthinking. And I think that as women, we are conditioned to think that we shouldn't apply for things if we are not like 100% qualified, or we feel like we're bothering other people. And that is just a mindset that if you are going to like go into the creative field, like you have to break that cycle, because you have to show up as you, and you have to be like open to criticism, and you have to be open to just like making a fool of yourself and like reaching out to people and doing things that you never thought that you could do, and yeah, I don't know. I think that's just like good life advice too. Like I really had to work on like sending emails to people. Like when I was like 18, I would like really sit and like overthink like every single email that I would ever send. And like now, you know, I try to be very professional and like still uphold like that kind of thing, because that, as like older generations, like they really do appreciate that. The thing that I think that specifically got me into my postgraduate degree was the amount of experience that I had doing different jobs. So when I was, from the time I was 18 to about 22, I had already had about like 8 different internship experiences, because I was just like, any opportunity, anytime I had time off, I was just like trying to either make money or have a new work experience. And while I didn't really have like a lot of like fun in my early 20s, because I was like so focused on that stuff, it is not something that I regret, because it is something that has gotten me here to this place in my life where like I'm just like absolutely so happy with what I'm doing. And through all of those experiences, I've worked on like art installations. I've worked for a gallery. I've worked for like a textile designer. I've worked for music venues, and I've worked for music festivals. I have, like, you name it, in the art world, I have done it. I gave myself fully to all of those experiences and just tried to learn as much as I could from each one, get better. And I think that that is something that has really led me to feel confident in like messing up. And because I just think that like going into an experience like this program, like it is really fast paced, and like we just had to turn out like a documentary, and I was the director for it in like a month and a half, and that was so overwhelming. But because I had all of this experience prior to that of like new experiences and just like throwing myself into things and trying not to be scared, like that is something that really served me well, and I think that like helped me on my application process. Like the second part of the video is really about like, if you're applying to art school, like how do you cultivate your voice? How do you be yourself in your work? And no matter what you're doing, like I think art school, you very much do have to rely on like your unique perspective as a person. This comes from everything. So like everything that you are absorbing in your life is going to be important. So I think exposing yourself to new opportunities, but then just like even exposing yourself to new types of art. So like reading more books if that's something that you're interested in, you know, reading poems, listening to different kinds of music, going to different exhibits, talking to new types of people, just keeping your ears open and trying to embrace all that you can learn from an opportunity or a style, or like even the way you dress, like all of those types of things, like it has to come from a very natural place. And I think that that is what led me to feeling very comfortable in who I am, and like allowed me to be very clear in my style going forward. And obviously I'm in school, and like I am still learning, and like I am still changing. So like being open to change and all those kinds of things, but also trusting yourself enough to be like, no, I do have a vision. I do have ideas. I do have something to bring to the table, and like finding confidence in that through absorbing things that other people are doing. And yeah, I just think that that's really important. So, okay. And then this next bit of advice is just like, try to be really passionate about something. And I know that I'm not supposed to use it because it's an Americanism, but I think that being passionate about things is just like a really important piece of life. And you can, like I was saying before, like I may not have been super passionate about like all the jobs and things that I've taken on, but like you sort of have to learn about like being passionate about improving and learning. And I think that that's like a good place to start. But one of the best pieces of advice that I have ever gotten was from an improv class it was an improv club meeting that I just didn't want to go to. And I didn't go to, I just like sat on the side because I did theater, but they had like improv meetings in high school, like before, anyway. But this teacher who was like also like the director of our play, he was great, but he said something that basically when you're doing improv, he was saying this to other improvers, that you shouldn't be afraid of your ideas being unoriginal, because they have an origin, because they came from your head. Stay with me. The origin, it's original. It came from here. So you just have to go with it and like not be afraid of something being cliche or overdone or oversaid, because like the second that you start overthinking that thing, then it becomes unoriginal, if that makes any sense. And I don't even know if that's what he meant, but like that's just kind of the idea that I took from it, is that Like in this day and age when like literally every song, every story, every television show, every movie, like everything has already been made. Like every story has been told at this point in our lives. Like they say like music, even like there's like only so many songs that like there's so many chords or whatever. Like we're just like repeating ourselves, you know what I mean? It can feel really defeating as somebody who creates things. And I think that this is actually one of the most detrimental thought processes somebody can have who is creating things, because this fearful mindset stops you from making anything. And the world is still turning and people are still interested in other people and their stories and their perspective. So you just have to ignore that fear of being unoriginal and just keep making things. And the more that you make things, the more that you will find your voice. Over time, you will get more specific and you will get better. And I find that even as I'm going forward, like I personally, yes, I've gotten into this program, but I have so much to learn and I am like just at the starting line, but I love learning. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then I would say like for whatever degree that you're going for, developing skills for it is really important. So like when I was talking about taking a gap year earlier, if you really want to go into, graphic design, let's say, as your undergrad, but you have no experience, maybe taking some time off, taking an online course, taking an in-person course, maybe trying to teach yourself strategies from YouTube or online. Like I learned how to do YouTube completely on my own from YouTube. So I learned the correct editing software to use. I learned the correct camera to use, how lighting works. I learned how to use my camera, how to edit. Editing took me so long to learn and I undervalued it so much as a skill until I was in this program and I realized like how much I had actually taught myself in the span of 3 years. And it's an insane amount, and it's because I was consistent and I just kept making videos and I just kept getting better. And like maybe this YouTube channel isn't gigantic, but like the editing skills that I have gotten that I can apply to my career going forward, it's incredible. And then you can just like get better at expressing yourself because you have technical skills as well. Yeah, and then I would say just like the last bit is just like get used to criticism and like try not to take it so personally, because I think as a creative person, like a lot of the stuff that you do and you make, it comes from you and you have to be strong in that and you have to be able to defend it. But then you also have to be able to like put it outside of you and like have people say like, no, that's not right. And you can't take it as a personal attack, even if you want to, which sometimes you maybe do. But I just think I had a lot of practice with this because I did musical theater and like you would just get notes like, and I feel like that really like prepared me for life. Is like they'd be like, oh, that was, maybe don't do it that way or maybe do it this way. And like I just think that it just like that really helped me as well. So I think the thing that I want anybody watching this video to take away is that you shouldn't be afraid. Just apply, see what happens. Just be honest in your application. Even if you think that you are underqualified, you might be exactly what they are looking for. Yeah, I mean, take it from somebody who just like, I literally didn't think that I was going to get in. I mean, at all. So I would just say, go get them, Tiger. Sorry, I said that. Okay. Cool. Have a nice day. Lisa says to have fun. Also follow me or subscribe. That's what we're doing. Yeah, all those things if you would like. Cool. Goodbye.